back to record. Okay, so don't stop believing, right? And the question I have for us is, have we stopped believing that the best is yet to come? Have we stopped believing that life more abundantly is for us in the here and now? That we don't have to wait to heaven to have this life more abundantly, to experience God's love, to experience that joy that comes from knowing Jesus. Do we believe that's for us? Do we believe our best is still yet to come? That's the question I want you guys to ask yourself. Are you believing that, or are we believing that? Because I know there was a time for me where I stopped believing that I stopped believing that my best was yet to come, that God had something for me, that I had just ruined everything and that I was going to be like that forever. And you know what? That's a lie from the devil. That's a lie from the devil. God has something for us. He has something for us in the right now, and we don't have to wait for it. We can start living that life today. And not only that, have we stopped believing that for other people? Look, God put people in our lives, like I was just praying about the paralytic being lowered in front of Jesus. God's put people in our lives so that we can believe for them. Not everybody's going to have the faith we have, but you know what? We get to stand in the gap. We get to stand for those who can't stand and say, you know what, God, I believe for this person. I'm going to believe that their breakthrough is coming. I'm going to believe that they're not going to suffer at the hands of the enemy for their entire lives. I'm going to believe that for them. We have the power to stand in that belief for somebody else and watch God's blessings roll onto them. And I've seen it in my life with some of my friends. I've seen it in my life with other people where I've stood in the gap and I've believed for other people and I've watched God move on their behalf. So that's my question. Have we stopped believing for ourselves as the best is yet to come? And have we stopped believing for other people? Don't stop believing. That's where it all starts. It all starts with faith. It all starts with believing. I really, really loved Antonio's testimony last Saturday at the 99 event. He had these points, and we're going to put these points up that he had this weekend that he was talking about. He had these points. He was talking. Well, if you didn't hear Antonio's testimony, he didn't go deep into like all the stuff he did wrong. He was talking about, he was giving the testimony of how he got from A to B, right? How he put a goal in his mind and he started off towards that. Lupe, do you have the points to come up on there? Because I don't have them written down. There we go. So here's was his points in his testimony. Number one was to make a goal and keep focusing on faith, by faith. Okay, embrace and own that goal. It's your identity, or your all-encompassing object. So you're to embrace that goal, relentlessly journey towards that goal as a pilgrim, as somebody who is after that you're not staying in the same place. And then don't look back. I thought those were really cool points that he made in order to stay on track, to have God's blessing in your life and to get from A to B. Those were part of his testimony. So he was talking about believing in God's promises, right? Remember how he was talking about how he wanted to be a pastor, how he wanted to get his kids back, and he wanted to be a pastor. And every time he went to filling out an application to be a pastor, he got denied. But he kept believing. He didn't stop believing. He didn't let that discourage him from the goal that God gave him in his heart, from the calling that God had on him. Yeah, there was some no's. Yeah, there were some bumps in the road. Yeah, there were some mountains in the way. But God is looking to show himself mighty. God doesn't want it to be easy, because he wants us to know that it was him. He wants us to know that we can trust him. He's doing something inside of us. So a lot of times we want, as Christians, as people, we want to live this life that is free of suffering, that is free of obstacles, that is free of pain, that is free of all that stuff. But you know what? That's not life. And if it was, how strong would you be if nothing ever tested you? If nothing, just think of physically, if nothing ever tested you, you just lay in bed, you start to lose muscle, right? You know, like astronauts, they're in space and they don't have gravity and stuff. And stuff they start to lose muscle, and some functions stop working if they stay too long. It's the same thing with us. God is trying to work something out in us. So it's not, we all want to be pain-free. We all want to not suffer anything. But you know what? That's where we get our growth. That's where we grow, is in the hard times, in the pain, in the suffering. And yeah, it sucks. But you know what? We have an opportunity in that pain. We have an opportunity in that suffering. We have an opportunity in those hardships to show ourselves worthy, to have victory in those moments. How rad is that? How awesome is that fact that we can do that? I want to be a guy that when I look back at all the trials I've been through, and I look back right now and there's just a disaster and a shipwreck of these trials, right? But starting a couple years ago, I started conquering trials. I started being a conqueror. I started being the man God called me to be. And I just keep taking one down after another, one giant after another, one mountain after another. And I feel like there's no mountain I can't climb, that there's no valley I can't walk through with my head held up. Because I've been strengthened through some trials. I've been strengthened through some failures. I've been strengthened through some mistakes, but I haven't quit. I never gave up. There's no quit in me. There's no quitting. There's no turning back. And so that's really what this message comes down to. So as Antonio was talking about making goals, setting a course, taking aim on those things that he believed God called him to, fixing his eyes, right? So we're fixing our eyes. And it's not talking about our physical eyes. We're talking about it's fixing the eyes of our heart, the eyes of our soul on that goal. And no matter what happens around us, no matter what says no, we're believing that God has something for us, and we're going to journey towards that goal until we get it. We've seen a million times in the Bible, story after story, where people are after something that they know God has promised to them, and it takes trial after trial until they get there. Look at Joseph when he had those dreams, right? As a young boy, he had the dreams. He knew that he was going to be standing, and he went through prison and all these different things until that finally came to fruition. So it doesn't always happen the way that we think it's going to happen. But if we stay that course, if we stay faithful, God is going to produce something inside of us. He's training us for that season. He's training us and getting us ready so that we can handle those blessings. So we need to keep believing even when the world says no, even when the world is saying, and I have a really cool story at the end of this whole message. I'm going to tell you guys about a time where a trial that I went through with somebody else. And it was really cool how God worked. But that's one of the things is even when everything else, the natural is saying no, we can believe in the supernatural because we have a God that doesn't play by the rules. He makes the rules, right? So we have a God who is authority. So if we got to go before a judge, I've seen guys go before judges. Just recently, I had a friend at church, and he was fighting a case that he had messed up a long time ago, and he had like 5 years or 8 years hanging over his head. And it kept getting delayed because of COVID. And we've been praying for him. He kept showing up to prayer, kept showing up to church, changing his life, doing all this cool stuff. Came finally that just a month ago, this guy went into court to get sentenced. He's got a baby, all this stuff. He's like, you imagine you'd be nervous. And we're praying over him, dude. God didn't bring you this far to quit on you now. You've been faithful. Stand in your faithfulness. Stand in that promise. He went to court. You know what they did? They gave him house arrest. That's it. Like, yeah, he's got to stay home. And he's like, whatever, got an ankle bracelet. He was looking at 8 years in prison. And God was faithful. God delivered on that promise that he was after, that he kept searching after and being faithful, even though he couldn't see it. Even though the natural would say, you know what, we don't care if you believe in God. That's too big for him, whatever. It happened for the guy. So that was really cool. All the great people of faith have done this. Every person that you could think of in the Bible who has great faith has been able to see these promises afar off. They've been able to lock their sight onto something and go for it, even though the world around them is saying it's not possible. Even though the world around them is screaming no in their ear, they've been able to lock their eyes onto God, onto Jesus, and know that he has something for them. And they've been able to journey that out. Hebrews 11 is often called the Hall of Faith, right? It talks about all these great people. And I've always, if you get on a message on here, you've heard me talk in Hebrews 11 because that's like my chapter right there, because it's talking about practical people that were able to overcome unfavorable circumstances by their faith. By their faith, they were able to overcome. By their faith, they were able to lock onto those promises and see them out. So this is how the chapter starts in Hebrews 11:1. I think we have that for you on the screen. Hebrews 11:1. This is in the NIV version. Normally, I use the New King James for everything, but this is This is the NIV because of the way that it's worded. It says, oh,
sorry, brother. I had 11:6 on the share screen on the documents. So I got to find 11:1.
I have it written down, but I have it written in the New King James. I could read it. I just don't have it in NIV.
Yeah, go ahead and read that.
Okay. So in the NIV or in the New King James, it says, now faith is the substance of things seen, hope for the evidence of things not seen. Okay. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I can't remember how the NIV says it, but it's the way that it says it, it really makes it make sense a little more. But anyway, we get the point that faith is being able to see things that are unseen, be able to believe in something that you can't see in the natural. Because you're believing in God, you don't have to look in the natural. We can look in the supernatural as his kids, because we know that God's promises are true. We know that God can do things that you can't expect. I mean, we look at all the miracles in the Old Testament. Look at all the miracles in your life that God busted down doors and opened Red Seas in your life. I bet you there's every person in here has a Red Sea story. I bet you everybody in here has a Red Sea story. So Second Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7.
We're all over the place.
That's all right. I have it written down. I'll read it, but she's going to put it up there for you too. 2 Corinthians 5, chapter 5, verse 7 says, for we walk by faith, not by sight. So how does it say that we're walking? It says that we're walking by faith, not by what you see, but by the belief you have in your heart, by the belief that God has put in us. That's how we're to walk. We're to walk in faith, and not by what we see, but in what we know that our God is doing, right? So we walk by faith and not by sight. What an easy verse to memorize. If you want to memorize scripture, there's one right there. Memorize that. Look how short that is. Anybody can remember that one. 2 Corinthians 5, 7. For we walk by faith, not by sight. Okay. So we don't have to see something to believe it. We don't have to see it to believe it. And a lot of times we do really good at the start of that, right? This is me. At the start of any journey that God is sending me on, anything that I have to believe in, it's real easy at the start for me to believe it. Like, oh yeah, I'm all pumped up. I'm fired up. Oh yeah, God's got this amazing plan for me. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And all this cool, radical stuff in my mind. All this cool stuff in the beginning. We believe that God has victory for us over addiction, that he has full restoration for us. We believe all these great things. And then the storm hits. Then life happens. Then, things happen that get in the way. They don't happen the way we think they're going to happen. We get a setback, a roadblock. I love this picture. That's life, right? You're driving down the road and all of a sudden here comes the waves right over the wall on you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that one coming. So, adversity starts to come. So for me, like I said, in the beginning of my faith, it's real easy to believe. And then I start to walk it out and it gets harder and harder. I come around the corner and once every single time, here comes a tidal wave right over the wall. And now I got to stand in that faith. I got to go back to that faith I started with. It's a lot easier said than done, but we need to see our faith to completion, to full birth. It's not over until it's over. So we have to see it all the way through. And it's easy to believe in the beginning, but at some point, sometimes we stop believing. We stop believing that promise we once believed. We stop believing that future that we once believed God had for us. We stop believing in those ministries God once called us to. Was that really for me? Did I really hear God? So we stop believing, we stop walking by faith, and we start seeing through the natural. And because we lack faith, we never make it to our promised land. You think about the children of Israel, they had a promised land to go to, and they didn't make it. Why didn't they make it? Because they stopped believing. They stopped believing that God could. They stopped believing that God would. Remember when they got to that hill and they sent the 10 spies in, They come back with this bad report and they're like, oh gosh, they're giants, we're done. It's the same God that split the sea, same God that sent the 10 plagues, the same God that had manna come from heaven, the same God that water came from a rock, the same God that delivered them from those snakes when they looked upon the staff, the same God. And now they see a couple giants and they're, how many of us get like that? That's me sometimes. I got to remind myself to stand in that faith I started with. And those promises that I once believed in. So Hebrews 6, chapter 6, verse 11 says this. It says, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Let me say that again. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. It says right there, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And what is it that we need to believe about God? That he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That he's a promise keeper. That he's faithful. That he's a way maker. That we need to believe that if we diligently seek him, that he's going to bless us, that he's going to make a way out of no way, that he's going to continue to bring us towards our purpose and that dream that he had for us. God wants us to believe even when we can't see it. That's the thing. He wants us to believe in when we can't see it, even when it seems like it will never happen. That's when your faith is really tested. We must believe that God is the rewarder. We must stand in that faith and that he is the way maker, that he fights for us, and that he has victory for us. We must stand in that. Second Chronicles 16:9 says, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro through the whole earth to show him strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. In this you have, we don't need that next part, but he's talking to a group of people. But look at what it says right there. It says, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro through the whole earth to show himself strong on behalf of those who are loyal to him. God is looking for somebody to show up for. Look, we're praying, we're asking God to show up in our lives, but are we showing him that we're loyal even when we don't see him? Are we showing God that we're standing in faith even when we face adversity, even when things aren't going our way? I know a lot of people, and I watch this happen, they go, well, God didn't deliver, and they bail out on Jesus. Well, he was looking for somebody loyal, and he was giving your chance to show him your loyalty. He was giving you your chance to show him that you were willing to stand with him and stand in faith, knowing that he was going to make a way, that he was going to move on your behalf. He's looking to show himself mighty on behalf of those who are loyal to him. I got to turn this light on real quick. It's getting dark out here. Can't read my notes. Sorry about that. All right, I'm back. Okay, so that's really cool. That I brought us through those verses because it's showing us, all those verses I just brought up is showing why faith is so important. God wants to move on our behalf. He wants to answer our prayers. He's already answered some of them, and we don't even know it. We just need to walk into them. But without faith, it's impossible. Without faith, without continuing down that path, sometimes we're going to miss out on the blessing that he has for us because we get discouraged. So that's what I'm trying to encourage us today, is no matter what your situation looks like, no matter how hard it is for you, stay encouraged that God fights for you, that God has a blessing. Show yourself loyal. Show yourself worthy. Show yourself faithful, knowing that God's gonna move on your behalf. So here's three things that I'm picking up from Scripture, from these scriptures, from reading this right here. These are the three things, three keys to seeing God move in our lives. Right? Number one, faith, belief. We have to believe that he's going to move. It says it's impossible to please him without faith. We must believe that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That brings us to point number two, or key number two. Seek him. The word says, seek and you will find. We have to believe. So if we believe that. Seek and you will find. It says, draw near to me and I'll draw near to you. We need to seek him. And then number 3 is show ourselves faithful. We need to show ourselves faithful. God is a faithful God. We can count on him. Can he count on us? Are we faithful? He's looking for the faithful. He can't trust us with more until we can show that we're faithful with what we got. We can't have more. You can't have more until you show yourself faithful with a little. And so we need to show ourselves faithful. If we want God to move on our behalf, it is essential that we operate in these 3 keys. If we want him to move in our behalf, it's essential that we move in those 3 things. That we don't put a time limit on it. Here's a lot of times this is what I do. Like, all right, God, you've got like 24 hours to show up. I'll be faithful for 24 hours, I promise. But 24 hours, it's over, God. If you don't show up, I'm out, right? But that's not how it works. We're being faithful without knowing when the end result's coming. That's what real faithfulness is. I absolutely love that passage in Daniel when they're getting ready to throw Meshach, Radshach, and Abednego in the fire, right? And they're getting ready to throw them in the fire, and they go, look, you could throw us in that fire. Our God will deliver us from that fire. But even if he doesn't, we're not bowing down to you. That's my attitude. My God's going to show up on my behalf. My God's going to make a way. But guess what? Even if he doesn't, I ain't turning back. I ain't bowing down to this world. Even if he doesn't show up the way that I think he's going to show up, I'm not backing down. Maybe we should have done that Tom Petty song, I Won't Back Down. We'll save that one for next time. All right. So we can't put a time limit on God to work. God doesn't operate in time and space like we do. And God is doing something in us, and he uses all things together for good. We know that. Okay. So you want to receive the promise. Stand in faith even when you can't see it. That's what Abraham did. That's what Moses did. That's what Noah did. Look, Noah built an ark for 120 years when it didn't even rain. People were coming by, hey, you're crazy old man building a boat for no reason, right? 120 years building this boat. Everybody calling him nuts. He probably thought he was nuts at the time. You start questioning yourself. Did I hear that? Did God really tell me that? But he stayed faithful even when he couldn't see it. And there he was saved and his whole family. Isn't that awesome? It wasn't only him that it affected. It wasn't only him that got the blessing, but those who were in his covering, those who he loved, also got blessed because of his faithfulness. That's us, guys. We're the heads of our families. We're the priest of our families. If we're the only Christians there, if we're the only ones that are faithful, we are the ones that the enemy must come through. Just like Noah was. He stayed faithful. His whole family was delivered. They were saved. So we need to stand in faith even when we can't see it. Some of us need to remember what God's already brought us through. That's a big one. That a lot of times when I really start to have doubts and like, oh God, I get this poor me, and I start crying, being a big baby. I have to remember what God's already brought me through, what he's already freed me from, the storms he's already walked me through. And I go, oh yeah, we got to remember where we came from. God got us from one place to another. We got to remember that. So I want to read Exodus 16, verses 1-3. But before I read it, I'm going to give you a little context of where we're at. So look at, God sent Moses over to Egypt to get the Israelites and set them free. 10 plagues. Finally, Pharaoh, I won't let my people go. No, let my people go. No. Finally, he lets the people go. They get out of there. They got bread. Even the Egyptians are just blessing them with all this gold. Like, dude, we're just happy to get rid of you at this point. They get over the mountain. They get down to the Red Sea. And all of a sudden, here comes Pharaoh. Pharaoh changed his mind. I'm not letting them go. So here he comes with all his great army. This is the greatest army in the world at the time. Comes over the hill. You could imagine the fear that sets in as they look behind them and see the Egyptians coming down on them and looking in front of them where there's no place to go. And God tells Moses, go into the water and put your staff down. I'll make a way. Go. He walks into the water. Look, God could have just split that water without Moses walking in. But Moses had to be faithful. He had to believe that God was going to make a way, even though it didn't make sense to him. He had to believe that God was going to show up, even though it didn't make sense. So Moses walked into that water. I know I would have been thinking like, why do I have to walk into the water? Just open it up. Let's go. But no, God wanted him to show his faith. He wanted Moses to be faithful. So Moses walks in the water. He splits the sea. The children of Israel says they walk on dry ground through a wet ocean. They're amazing. They're going through, and here's how the enemy works. And the Egyptians followed them. It says they pursued them into the Red Sea. This is the same thing the enemy does with us. God's opened some Red Seas in our lives. They've split, and we're walking on dry ground. And we look behind us, and oh my gosh, wouldn't you know, the enemy is following us in. He's following us right through. But I love the part it says that all of a sudden the enemy realized, oh no, their God fights for them. And they went to turn around. The Egyptians went to turn around, and the sea come crashing in and just annihilated them. And so they get out the other side, and you would think these guys would have the strongest faith in the world. They just walked through something that they shouldn't have been able to walk through. A miracle just happened that they never seen before. You would think that on the other side, they would have had this strong faith, right? Well, you would think that about some of us too, that have watched God do miracles in our lives. Some of us who should be in prison who aren't. Some of us who should be dead that aren't. Some of us who should be on the streets that aren't. Some of us who whatever that aren't, right? You would think that the faith would be really strong. But that's where we're going to catch this verse right here in Exodus 16, 1-3. Let's see what the Israelites do here. It says, and they journeyed from Elam, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is in between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they departed. So it's only been a couple months. It ain't even been, my gosh. And they departed the land from when they departed the land of Egypt. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. We sat by pots of meat, where we were able to eat bread to full. And you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill us, this whole assembly, with hunger. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. God just did all these miracles in front of them. They get to the other side. And, my first reaction when I read this, like, what a bunch of morons. What's wrong with these people? And then I remember who I am. Then I remember I'm that moron. I'm that guy. I'm the same guy who gets to the other side and starts complaining. God, where is it? You promised. Why don't I see it? I'm that same guy. I'm one of the Israelites that gets to the other side and starts complaining. God, did you bring me out here to make me miserable? Come on. Don't we remember what he just brought us through? Don't stop believing. You've come too far. We've come too far to give up now. Don't stop believing. We've come too far. We need to keep that faith. That's what happens. You get to the other side, and where does that faith go? Does it turn to doubt? Does it turn to fear? So we need to stop believing. We need to not stop believing. So God did all these miracles to show up all these times for these people, and as he did for us. And he didn't bring us all this way to give up on us now. God didn't bring the people of Israel out there to starve them to death, even though they complained and accused him of that. He didn't bring you all this way to quit on you now in your time of need. He didn't bring you all this way to just throw in the towel on you. Say, oh yeah, they're fine. I got them out of there. Now it's on them now. Whatever happens to them, let them do whatever they're going to do. No. He didn't bring you all this way to quit now. He didn't bring you all this way to have you perish in the wilderness. He's got something for us. He's got a promised land for us. But that promised land is dependent on us. Heaven's not dependent on us. That's dependent on Jesus. We have heaven. But the promised land, those promises, we need to stand in faith. We need to see our faith to completion to see those promises. Let God work in your life. Stand in faith. So we don't give up on him. Hold on to that same faith that got you here. That's where I'm at right now, is whenever I get discouraged, I have to remember what faith got me here. And I go, man, I just got discouraged the other day. And it wasn't even about me. It was just about some other people in my life. And I was discouraged for them. And it actually affected me to a point of almost tears. You know, I'm like, I was distraught for like a full day. I was like, because I was believing for somebody else, right? And I wasn't seeing it happen for them. And then I remember to stand on the faith that got me there. I watched them grow. I've watched God move in their life. I'm not going to stop believing for them that something's got, yeah, they made some mistakes. Yeah, there's some backslide or whatever it is, but I'm not going to stop believing that God's going to see them to fruition, that they're going to step back up, that they're going to get back on their horse, that they're going to keep going. And so I was able to regather myself even after feeling that way. And, but it could be hard. It could be hard feeling that way about somebody else or even for ourselves. So don't give up on God. Don't give up on him. He's not giving up on you. Hold on to that faith that got you here. Look, it's easy to believe and to be faithful when everything's going our way. That's simple. Anybody can do that, right? Anybody can be faithful when everything's going your way. Oh man, look at me. I'm so faithful. Yeah, everything's going good. Woo-woo. Right? But it's not so easy when everything's going wrong and nothing's going your way and you can't hear God's voice and you don't, and it seems like the world's coming down on you. A little harder to believe then, huh? It's a little harder to believe then and to stand in faith in that time. It's another, oh man, yeah, it's another thing when we can't see it. When what hits the fan, that's when our faith really comes out. That's when we really get to show who we are. That's when it happens. I don't know who made up that saying. When what hits the fan. I mean, did that really happen? Anyway, so but that's when we have our opportunity to show our faith, is when stuff really goes bad. That's the opportunity to go, you know what, God, I'm gonna show myself faithful. Meshach, Rashach, and Abednego, same thing. When stuff really got bad, hey, you're getting thrown in the fire today. Guess what? It's your day. You get thrown in the fire. That's it. Their faith was awesome at that time. They told me I would have folded like a $2 chair, just down, right? But their faith stood in that moment. That was just so cool how they stood. And we have that opportunity when we face our trials, when we face unfavorable circumstances, when things go wrong. We have that opportunity. And sometimes it's not just about us, like I said, but we have to stand and believe for those around us. And so I want to end with a little story. So I have a friend and his name is Freddie. I love Freddie like he's my brother. I love him like a brother. I love him like there's a verse in, I think it's in 1 Samuel, that talks about David and Jonathan and how David loved Jonathan. He loved Jonathan like his own flesh, like his own self. I love Freddie like that. Like, this is my brother. This is my boy. We've been through some times together and I absolutely love this guy. And he lives in Phoenix and he was really struggling. And I was trying to get him to move out with me and live with me. And I told him, look, I'll pay all your bills. You just come live with me, work with me, shadow me. This is probably 4 months. It was probably like 4 months into me coming back to Jesus, right? 4 or 5 months. So I'm like brand new trying to figure this thing out, right? And I'm like, Freddie, come out and live with me. I'll show you the ropes, man. I'll put you to work. I'll pay. How much are your bills? He goes, I'll pay him. And I talked to his girlfriend, or he goes, no, I can't do it. His girlfriend goes, yes, he can. Take him. She's trying to get him out of there. And I'm like, come on. And he won't do it. And so his life gets worse, right? So I have this plan. I'm going to go out there and see him. I want to go out and see him. And then stuff really starts going bad for him. I mean, it gets really bad. Like, he goes to jail and he's got all it's as bad as it could get, right? The drugs have led him to a place that he doesn't want to be. And I'm coming out there and I go, hey, I'm coming out to see you. And he goes, maybe I'll just go. Oh, I'll get to that. But anyways, when I'm going out there to see him, I go, God, I don't know. I'm praying. I'm on my way to the gym and I'm praying. And I go, God, what am I going to do when I get out there? Like, I don't even know where to bring this guy. Like, this is my plan. This is what God told me. Go out there and get that guy in a rehab. Go bring him to a rehab. And so I'm praying on my way to the gym. I'll never forget this. I'm praying. I go, God, I don't have any resources in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know anybody in Phoenix, Arizona, but Freddie. What am I going to do? Make a way for me. And so I get out of the gym and I'm getting all my stuff together. And I'm driving to Phoenix. And I call my buddy Paul and I go, Paul, because he knows Freddie. I got all these people. I'm telling everybody, pray for Freddie, pray for Freddie, pray for me. I'm going out there. And my brother, I remember my brother's Debbie Downer, and he's like, oh yeah, right. It ain't ever gonna work. He's gonna be worthless his whole life, whatever, right? So my dad and my brother, don't ever go to those two guys if you want encouragement. It's always negative Nelly. Oh, the sky is falling. They'll never make it. I don't even talk to them until after it happens. And then they're still doubtful. Like, we'll see if that lasts, right? But anyway, that's just how they are. I love them to death, but I know who to go to. So I'm telling all these people, pray for Freddie. So I call Paul and I say, hey, pray for Freddie. I'm going out there. He goes, where are you going to take him? I go, I don't know. He goes, hold on, I'll call you back. So he calls me back. He goes, hey, I got a guy. He's got a place out there. He'll send a letter of recommendation, all this stuff, right? I'm like, all right, God, here we go. So I'm driving out there and I'm praying the whole way. I'm on my way. I'm praying to God. I'm talking to him. And I feel God tell me, I've never heard his voice. That's not how it works with me, but there's impressions. And I hear God tell me, I've called you out of the boat. You're stepping out of the boat. Don't pay attention to the storm. Keep your eyes on me. No matter what happens out there, I want you to focus on me. Don't listen to the storm. I got you. Don't listen to the storm. I got you. And so I call him and it sounds like he's doing some stuff he's already not supposed to. And I'm like, nope, I'm just going to keep on believing, right? So I get out there. The morning I wake up, I go for a run. I get back from the run and all hell is breaking loose in this house. Freddie's throwing plates against the wall. Him and his girlfriend are screaming at each other. I mean, I think I'm going, oh no, here we go. I'm going to have to beat up Freddie. Like, I'm like in between, because I thought he was going to it was getting wild in there. So I'm like standing in between him and his girlfriend. And I'm like, no, heck no, buddy. It ain't going down like that. You know, I love you, but I'll still knock you out. Anyway, just playing. Freddie would get me. He's way bigger than me. But anyway, I'm not going to let it go down like that. So I'm thinking, oh gosh. So I'm getting in the middle. Plates are going everywhere. And I feel that voice. Don't pay attention to the storm. Don't pay attention to the storm. Keep believing. Right. So I'm like, I get him calmed down. I'm like, let's go out to lunch. So we go out to lunch. And his big concern is his girlfriend kicking him out and throwing all of his stuff outside. Right. So we're at lunch and she's texting me. I'm throwing all of his stuff outside. And I'm telling the whole time, no, she won't do that. I'm getting these text messages at the table saying, I'm throwing all of his stuff outside. He's out of here. He's not welcome here. I'm changing the locks. And the whole time he's telling me this, I'm going, nope, that's not going to happen, Freddie. That's not going to happen, you know? And I'm sitting across from him at the table and I go, Freddie, you know why I'm out here? And he goes, you're out here because you want to get me help. And I go, no, I'm out here because this is what love looks like. This is what love looks like, brother. I'm out here because you need help and I'm your brother and I'm here. And so we start talking. He goes, what do you want to do today? I said, how far are we from the Grand Canyon? He says, we're a couple hours. You want to go? Go, heck yeah, I want to go. So I had been sending him this message throughout the week before I got there of Todd White's testimony. If you guys haven't listened to Todd White's testimony, oh my gosh, you're missing out in life. Go watch Todd White. Just type it into Google or YouTube or whatever. Todd White's testimony. Fantastic. So I've been sending to Freddie. He hasn't watched it. I know he hasn't watched it because he never responded. And anybody I ever sent to texts me back every time. Oh my gosh, that was the best thing I've ever seen. Right. So we're driving to his house to get the stuff. And I'm texting his girlfriend at the time. I'm going, look, just chill. Please give me something to work with. Just chill. God's going to do something here. Just believe. And she's like, yeah, whatever. So we're driving to the house and I have another friend who's praying for him. His name's Chris. Well, Chris sends me a Christian song. He says, play this for Freddie. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm playing him this song. I'm only 4 or 5 months into this thing, guys. All right. So anyways, I'm like, I'm not playing this song. It's kind of corny, whatever. I don't even know the song, but I'm like, you're not going to want to listen to the worship music right now. This guy's throwing plates against the wall. And so, but don't listen to the storm. Just be faithful. So I'm like, you know what? Hey, Freddie, Chris sent this song he wants you to listen to. Freddie goes, put it on. Put it on the Bluetooth. So I put it on. I look over and Freddie's crying like a baby, right? I'm like, oh gosh, thank you, Chris. That's exactly. God showed up though, right? God sent something I would have never done. And so here Freddie is bawling. I start crying because he's crying. It's a mess. We got life jackets on in the car, whatever. And then so we're driving the Grand Canyon. Freddie goes, hey, let's listen to that message. Let's listen to that message you sent me. And I go, really? You want to listen to the message? So he puts Todd White on. And it's exactly what Freddie's going through in his life. He is crying the entire way to the Grand Canyon. Listen to this message. It's just, oh my gosh, God is moving. So anyway, he goes, after we get to the Grand Canyon, we see the Grand Canyon, we go out for dinner. We're driving back. He goes, you know what? I think I'll go home with you. I think I'll go back to your house. I think I'll take you up on that offer. And I go, you know, Freddie, that ship has sailed. I can't take you home now. Like too much has happened between then and now that's not an opportunity anymore. I can't allow you to do that because you need more help than I can give you. With the addiction you have and the stuff you're going through, I can't help you with where you're at in your life right now. You need to get into a rehab. And he starts to freak out. Rehab, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, where would I go? And I go, well, actually, I called Paul to pray for you, and he already got a letter of recommendation. And then all of a sudden, you just see the softening over Freddie. And so this whole time, there's all these storms, and I have to just keep believing that in God. I got to stand in that faith I started with. The faith that sent me out there was the faith, still the same faith I had to stand in when Freddie said, no, I'm not going to rehab. When Freddie was throwing plates against the wall. When all these things were happening, and there was more than that, but when all these things were happening, that was the faith I had to go back to, the same faith that sent me there. And so he goes, well, how long's the program? Because he's like, I'm thinking about this program I heard about. It's like 8 days. I'm like, dude, 8 days? No, you need more than 8 days. Ain't gonna do nothing for you. You barely sleep it off in 8 days. Like you're gonna need more sleep than that. So I go, no, this program's 8 months. 8 months? Oh, I can't do 8 months. And so anyways, so we're driving and I'm like, dude, just think, why didn't you just go there with me? Let's just drive and go check it out tomorrow morning. And then he goes, all right, I'll check it out with you. So we get to his house. I prayed over him about some things, and I go, I'm going to go in and I'm going to call the house. And I'm going to see and get everything set up. So I go in the room and I call the place, right? And I go, hey, my name's Bill. I'm from San Diego. I got my boy Freddie here. I'm going to bring him and check him into your program tomorrow. I got a letter of recommendation, all this stuff. And the guy goes, no, you're not. We don't have any beds. I go, I don't think you heard me. I'm from San Diego. God sent me out here. I'm bringing my friend to your program tomorrow. He goes, no, we don't have any beds. I go, no, you got this messed up. God sent me out here from San Diego to bring my friend to your program, and we're going to show up tomorrow. And he goes, we don't have any beds. He goes, you can call back tomorrow and see if somebody left. And I'm like, okay. I walk out of the room and I walk out there and Freddie goes, what'd they say? I go, they said, we're checking you in tomorrow. So I just had to stand in faith, and I wasn't lying. I mean, I guess I was kind of, because they didn't really say that, but I knew what they really said was check him in tomorrow, because that's what God was telling me. And I wasn't going to listen to the storm. See, I could have so easily forgot about the faith that sent me out there and said, you know what? They said, no. Oh, well, we can't get him into a program, whatever. So the next day I wake up, I'm reading my Bible at the table, and all of a sudden Freddie's gone. He's not at the house. It's just me sitting there by myself. His car's gone. I'm like, oh no. And I'm just like, all right, God, I prayed. I texted him and he goes, don't worry. He goes, I got to get rid of some stuff in this house before I get checked into that program. He goes, I need another day. I have to get my car registered. I have to do this. I have to do that. I'm like, Freddie, I got to go back to work, but whatever you need. You want me to stay here all week? You got me. Whatever you need, I'm here. See, I wasn't going to let the enemy steal the victory that God had for me. No matter if it was going to take another day or 2 more days or what, I was willing to go the distance. I was willing to stand on that faith, knowing that God was going to move. And so we go get all of his stuff done. The next day or that night, we're driving. He had been waiting for this job to come through. He was jobless. He was waiting for this job. It was his dream job. We're driving to go drop off this last stolen stuff that he has in his car. And this is just the life I live, guys. Sorry. So we're driving to drop off this stolen stuff. And he goes, and the phone call comes in, and he's got it on speaker on Bluetooth, and it's a guy, and he goes, it's the job he's been waiting for. And the guy goes, you're hired. He goes, you could start on Monday. And I'm like, no, God, I'll rebuke that. No job right now. And Freddie goes, you know what? I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to decline the job. He goes, there's some things I got to take care of. I got to get something straight with me first. to God had shifted everything. God had moved. Here I am standing in faith, lowering my friend in front of Jesus. The next morning we showed up. They never said one thing about a bed. They never asked about a bed. They never said anything about a bed. When we walked into that rehab center, they said, well, I said, hey, here's Freddie to check him in. They go, come right in, sign these papers, you're in. I prayed over him in that room with the guy there. And the guy never met us in his life. All three of us were bawling. I mean, Holy Spirit fire was coming. I don't even know what was coming out of my mouth. Freddie's crying. The guy next to me's crying. He never met us. We're all crying. There's a bunch of crybabies in this room. And something shifted in there, though. Something shifted. God shifted something that right in that moment. And I left. And I'm just thanking God as I drove away. And Freddie called me and says, I don't know what happened in that room, but something changed. Something happened. And then I get a text from his mom. And his mom says, thank you for what you did for my son. I can't thank you enough for what you did for my son. So here it is. We have to stand in faith. We have to stand on that faith that we started with. God will see it through. It can look impossible. It could look like it's never going to happen, but we're not believing in the natural. We're believing in the supernatural. So I want to encourage you guys, no matter what you're going through, maybe you're going through a custody battle. Maybe you're going through a divorce you don't want to go through. Maybe you're going through addiction. Maybe you're going through whatever it is you're going through. Believe in that promise God gave you. Believe in that promise God's calling you to. Don't give up. Give God the room to move in your life. Be faithful, be loyal, show yourself loyal so that he would show up on your behalf. He's looking for those to show himself mighty. So that's the message for today. I hope you guys got something out of that. I hope that encouraged you guys. You know, those 3 keys, have faith, believe, right? The second key was seek him. And the third key was, did I forget the third key already? No, I didn't. I might have. I got to look at my notes. What was the third key? How did I forget that? My mind just goes blank. Oh, show yourself loyal. My gosh, can you believe that? I didn't even remember I own 3 keys, and I expect you guys to remember. You better write it down, people. Better write it down. If I forgot it, you're definitely forgetting it. All right, 3 keys to seeing God move. Faith, believe. You have to believe. Seek him and show your faithfulness. Show that you're loyal. Let God move on your behalf, guys. So with that ending, I want to, Antonio has encouraged me not to just open it up, but to ask a question and have you guys answer a question. So this is, if you guys don't like it, guess what? You can blame Antonio and you can tell him how much you hated the question and it's all his fault. And you can give him a hard time next time you see him. And if you like it, don't tell him anything. Just, it's my idea. All right. So here's the question. And anybody can answer this, and I hope somebody does. What's going on right now that you need to exercise your faith in? What's going on right now in your life? What are you facing in your life that you need to exercise that faith that I was talking about? That beginning faith that set you on this course, that beginning faith that set you on this path. What is going on that you need to exercise that faith? Anybody want to be transparent and share?
Okay, I guess I'll go.
Awesome.
Basically, I think something I need to work on in my faith would be consistency in prayer and getting wisdom from God and reading the Bible.